What happens when a self-made CEO trades his corner office for steel toe boots and a name tag, and no one knows who he really is? Reid had built his logistics company from scratch. 2 trucks, 1 rented storage unit, and a phone line in his garage. Now, 15 years later, he had over 200 employees and 7 full-scale warehouse locations across 3 states. But lately, something felt off. Customer complaints were stacking up. Delays in shipments, packages damaged, calls not returned. The reports from his district manager were polished, reassuring. Too polished. So Harrison decided to see it for himself. He picked the 3rd warehouse on the list, Midvale, Illinois. It was mid-sized, handled mostly consumer electronics. He'd never stepped foot in that location, and no one there had ever met him. The perfect spot. He grew out his beard, dyed it a few shades darker, added a slight Midwestern accent, and had his assistant create a fake employee file. New hire. Warehouse loader. Name, Hank Rivers. He showed up Monday morning at 5:45 a.m. sharp. The warehouse was already buzzing. Forklifts moved pallets, conveyor belts rattled in the background. A tall man in a fleece vest and clipboard looked him up and down. "You the new guy?" the man asked. "Yeah." "Hank," Harrison said, adjusting his work gloves. "Rick Dawson, I'm the floor supervisor here. Let's keep it simple, load fast, don't screw around, and don't ask for breaks unless you're bleeding. You'll shadow Jordan for now." Harrison blinked. "Sorry, did you say no breaks?" Rick didn't even look at him. "You heard me." A young worker in a blue hoodie and safety vest approached. "You Hank, I'm Jordan, come on, I'll show you the ropes." They walked to the loading docks. Jordan, maybe in his early 20s, had a calm voice and clear eyes. He explained the workflow, how the scanners worked, where to stack pallets. They worked side by side for an hour. Harrison kept pace, but his back was already tightening. Jordan noticed. "You good?" "I'll be all right." Jordan handed him a bottle of water. "Don't let Rick see that." "He freaks out if he thinks you're slacking." Harrison frowned. "You're not allowed to drink water." "Technically we are, but Rick makes it miserable. He times our bathroom breaks." "Has anyone talked to anyone higher up?" Jordan gave a sad laugh. "District manager comes once a month. Rick cleans everything up the day before. We just try to get through it." They kept working. A woman named Zaria Lopez joined their line mid-morning. She was fast, efficient, and sharp. She noticed Harrison's awkward grip on the scanner and helped him adjust it. "You gotta press from the side, not the top, otherwise it jams." "Thanks, you been here a while?" 2 years. "I'm part-time now, my kid just started preschool, but they won't let me switch to days, nights, or nothing." "Have you asked?" 3 times. "Rick said it's not his problem." Harrison didn't respond. He just kept scanning. Around noon, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse. A pallet had fallen, boxes everywhere. Rick stormed over, barking. "What the hell happened?" A thin teen in a green vest, maybe 17 or 18, stood frozen. I was trying to lift it like Jordan showed me, but don't blame Jordan. You dropped it, you clean it up, and guess what? No lunch for you. You can't skip my break." Rick stepped in close. "Try me." Harrison felt heat rising in his chest, but he said nothing. Not yet. After work, in the locker room, Harrison sat beside Jordan. "Does that happen often?" Jordan shrugged. "Rick's always like that. He keeps saying we're replaceable." Last week, Zaria asked to leave early cause her kid was sick. Rick told her to choose between her job or being a mom. Harrison clenched his jaw. "And no one's done anything about this. Who would listen? We don't even get surveys anymore. They stopped 6 months ago." Harrison nodded slowly. He'd personally pushed for those surveys in the early days. Kept things honest. But somewhere between expanding and hiring more layers of management, he'd lost track. He had seen enough for one day. But he wasn't done. Tomorrow, he'd come back. And this time, he wouldn't just be watching. The second day at Midvale started with a delay. The loading bay doors were jammed, something to do with a faulty sensor, according to a red-faced maintenance tech pacing outside with his phone. It was barely 6 in the morning, but already a cluster of trucks waited outside with deliveries that couldn't be unloaded. Inside, Jordan was reorganizing pallets to make space. Harrison joined him without a word. The wear from yesterday was obvious on his body. His shoulders ached and his hands felt stiff. But he kept moving. "You're back," Jordan said, surprised. Harrison adjusted his safety vest. "Not much of a quitter." Jordan gave a small nod. "Most don't last past day one." As they lifted a box together, Harrison asked, "What happens when these delays hit? Do you get more help?" Jordan shook his head. "Nah, we're just expected to catch up. Rick'll probably keep us late." A loud voice cut through the warehouse. "I need 2 people on Bay 4, now." Rick was walking fast, eyes scanning the floor like he was hunting. He stopped when he saw a young woman organizing shipping labels. "You deaf, Caitlin?" I said. "Bay 4. I'm supposed to audit the returns first." Rick took 2 steps closer. "You're supposed to do what I tell you. You want to stand here arguing or you want to keep your job?" Caitlin didn't respond. She just set the clipboard down and walked toward the bay. Harrison turned to Jordan. "That normal?" Caitlin's new. He's been on her case all week. Yesterday he told her she was too soft for this kind of work. Harrison kept his expression still, but his stomach turned. He'd built this company to be different, built it on fairness and grit. Now it was operating like a sweatshop under his nose. Later that morning, while reorganizing inventory with Zariah, Harrison noticed a man standing near the break room door, arms folded. He wasn't working. Wasn't even pretending to. Zariah's voice dropped. "That's Darren. He's Rick's cousin or something, floats around, doesn't scan, doesn't load. Just hangs out. He get paid, same as us. Maybe more." A few minutes later, Darren wandered over to the coffee station despite the floor being slammed with backlog from the door malfunction. Harrison kept one eye on him while sorting a misrouted shipment. Zariah leaned in. "Don't say anything." Last guy who questioned it stopped getting scheduled. That afternoon, a delivery driver named Marcus came in with a shipment from St. Louis. He was sweating, his uniform stained from the drive. "Need some help unloading," Marcus said, wiping his forehead. "This one's heavy." Rick didn't even look up from his tablet. "Not my job, you brought it, you unload it." Marcus looked toward the loading team. "They're swamped." Rick shrugged. "Should have brought a helper." Marcus walked toward the back to start dragging boxes alone. Harrison stepped in. "I'll give him a hand." Rick snapped. "You got your own station." Harrison didn't stop walking. He got to Marcus and lifted one side of the pallet. "You knew?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, just trying to do the right thing," Marcus nodded. "Wish more folks thought that way." After helping unload, Harrison returned to his line. Rick was standing there, arms crossed. "You think you're special?" Harrison met his eyes. "No." "Then don't act like it. You follow my lead, or you find another job." That night, Harrison sat in the break room with Jordan and Zariah. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The vending machine had eaten someone's dollar. Jordan tossed a crumpled napkin onto the table. "Rick's been holding back our overtime." Harrison looked up. "What do you mean?" "We're supposed to clock out through the system, but Rick's been telling us to punch out at 9 and just finish up the last few pallets. Says it'll even out later." Zariah added, "I've been tracking mine. I'm down almost 7 hours this month." "You report it," Jordan laughed bitterly. "To who?" "HR's in Chicago. We call, they say they'll look into it. Nothing changes." Harrison's jaw tightened. "Does anyone ever talk to the district manager directly?" Zariah shook her head. "He comes in, Rick gives him a tour of the cleanest aisle, they grab lunch, then he's gone, never even talks to us." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jordan said, "You're not really like the others." Harrison raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You don't treat this like just a paycheck. You ask questions, you help. Most people here are just trying to survive." Harrison didn't respond. He couldn't. Not without giving himself away. The next morning, Harrison arrived early and waited outside. He watched as Zariah pulled in, rubbing her eyes. Caitlin stumbled out of her car, still half asleep. Jordan arrived last, walking slower than usual, limping slightly. Inside, the tension was immediate. Rick was already shouting across the floor. "Darren, make sure none of those guys slouch today." "I want full output by 10, Darren nodded, still sipping his coffee. By mid-morning, something happened that changed everything. Caitlin was lifting a box from a high shelf too high for someone her size. She lost her grip and the box tumbled, narrowly missing her shoulder. Rick saw it. Instead of checking on her, he barked, "That's what happens when you don't follow instructions." She looked shaken. Her hands trembled as she crouched to pick up the mess. Harrison dropped his scanner and walked over. "She needs help." Rick turned. "You got something to say, Hank?" She almost got injured, "and you're blaming her." She wasn't using the step stool like I told her yesterday. She was alone. Rick took a step forward. "You got a problem with how I run my floor?" Harrison looked around. Every employee had stopped working. Eyes were on them, then he said it. "Yes, I do," Rick laughed. "Then maybe you're not cut out for this place." "No," Harrison said, pulling off his cap. "Maybe you're not." He reached into his vest, pulled out his company badge, and held it up. Harrison Reid, founder and CEO. The room went still, Rick's face drained of color. Darren stepped back like he'd been slapped. Harrison's voice was calm but firm. "I've spent the last 2 days watching you bully employees, ignore safety, and steal time from people who are barely making ends meet. This ends now?" Rick opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Harrison turned to the workers. "Anyone who's been forced to work off the clock, speak to me directly after this shift. We'll get it corrected. Today," he turned back to Rick, "you're done here. Gather your things." Effective immediately. Then to Darren. "You don't work here anymore either. You've been collecting a check for nothing. That stops now." Harrison motioned to his assistant, who had just entered the building with 2 members of corporate HR. "Let's go to my office," Harrison said to Zariah, Jordan, and Caitlin. "We've got some things to fix." And for the first time since he'd walked into Midvale, the warehouse was quiet. By the time Harrison finished the impromptu meeting with HR and had Rick and Darren escorted off the premises, the warehouse was in a strange hush. Work hadn't resumed. People lingered near their stations, whispering in low tones, unsure if what they'd just witnessed was real. Harrison stepped onto the main floor again, now wearing a company-issued visitor badge clipped to his shirt. The beard was still there, but the pretense was gone. He walked directly to a metal folding table near the back, where Caitlin was reassembling the contents of the box she dropped earlier. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded hesitantly, brushing hair from her face. "I didn't expect all that to happen." "I didn't either," he said. "But it needed to." Across the floor, a man with a clipboard approached cautiously. He looked to be in his 30s, clean-shaven, and wore a navy blue pullover with a faded company logo. He stopped a few feet from Harrison. "I'm Malik," he said. "I handle inventory tracking. I wasn't in that part of the building earlier, but I heard." "Is he really gone?" "Rick won't be back," Harrison said. "And if anyone else has been enabling what he was doing, they won't be either, but I want to get a full picture first." Malik's jaw tightened. "I kept my head down. I didn't like how he ran things, but—" It was hard to speak up. Harrison studied him for a moment. "I'm not here to blame people who were trying to keep their jobs, but tell me the truth. Were you ever pressured to alter inventory numbers?" Malik hesitated. "Once, last quarter. He said a pallet had gone missing. It was actually misrouted, and he told me to mark it as shrinkage so it wouldn't make the team look bad. I logged it anyway. He found out and reassigned me to a backroom role for a month." "Did you report that?" No one asked. "I didn't think it would matter." Harrison nodded slowly. "It matters now. I want to see your logs from the last 6 months. I'm going to review every inventory adjustment made under Rick's supervision." Malik gave a short nod and walked off toward the back office. Harrison turned and scanned the floor again. He noticed Jordan stacking small shipping boxes near the conveyor belt. His movements were slower than usual, more deliberate. "Jordan," Harrison called, walking over. Jordan looked up but didn't pause. "Still feels weird seeing you like this." "I imagine so." Jordan set the last box in place and stepped aside. "You meant it, right, about fixing things?" "I don't make promises I don't intend to keep." Jordan rested his hands on his hips. "Then you should know this place is short at least 4 people every shift. We've been running light for weeks. Rick told corporate we were fully staffed, but he stopped calling in temps to save budget." Said we'd build stamina. How long has that been going on? Since late January. We're cycling people faster than we can replace them. 2 quit last week. Harrison exhaled slowly. That's going to change. Effective immediately, I'll authorize temp support and permanent hiring to fill every gap, but I need your help identifying the right roles. Jordan looked surprised. You want me to help with that? You know the floor better than anyone here. I trust your judgment. Jordan didn't say anything at first, then he said, I can map it out tonight. I already have a list of where the bottlenecks are. Bring it to me tomorrow morning. As Harrison turned, he saw Zariah coming down the hallway from the offices, holding her phone loosely in one hand. Everything okay? He asked. She nodded. Just called my sister. She's picking up my kid. I didn't want to have to leave early again and risk, you know. You won't have to worry about that anymore, she eyed him cautiously. I've heard that before. I mean it. You've got more experience than half the folks I've met in this company. If I offered you a morning shift, would you take it? Her eyes narrowed. Is that a real offer? Starting next Monday, you'll be on days, no loss in hours, same rate. Her face shifted, part disbelief, part relief. Yeah, I'd take that. Good. I'll have HR follow up with the formal change. She gave a nod, then walked back toward her station. For the first time, her shoulders weren't tense. Harrison moved through the warehouse for the next hour, speaking with team leads, reviewing logs, and asking questions. No one seemed to know where the old supply checklists had gone. The safety compliance binder was 2 months out of date, and several employees had been operating without current certifications for the forklift routes. He pulled aside a petite woman with glasses who was running the outbound scanner. Who's been handling certifications? He asked. She adjusted her gloves and said, that was supposed to be Rick. He told us just to keep it moving and said the paperwork would catch up. What's your name? Samira. I do outbound tags and sometimes run the floor if Jordan's out. You ever get trained for that? No, I just taught myself. Rick didn't want anyone else getting ideas about stepping up. Harrison looked toward the corner where the office printer was humming. You're about to get trained. Starting next week, you'll be shadowing one of our regional floor managers remotely. I want you ready to lead if we need a new floor lead here. Her eyebrows rose. Me, you've already been doing it. She nodded slowly, then returned to her line. By late afternoon, Harrison retreated briefly to the small upstairs office that overlooked the main floor, a space Rick had used primarily as a place to avoid work. The desk was dusty. The computer's desktop background still featured a sports car. He sat down and clicked into the warehouse's personnel management system. The time logs confirmed what he'd been told. Dozens of instances where employees clocked out, but shipments continued moving for another 20 minutes, sometimes longer. He flagged every one of them. His phone buzzed. It was Liz, his assistant back at headquarters. You're going to want to see the preliminary numbers, she said. We ran a spot audit on Rick's last 3 months. Inventory discrepancies are 3 times higher than reported, and there's a pattern of falsified shift summaries. He's been underreporting damaged goods and inflating output. Send me the full report, I'll file it with legal. One more thing. HR found a complaint from last year, a harassment report from a former employee. It was marked as resolved but never followed up. That hit harder than Harrison expected. Make sure legal sees that too. I want a full investigation. He ended the call and stared out the glass window at the warehouse below. The mood on the floor had shifted. It wasn't cheerful exactly, but it was lighter. People moved with less hesitation. They spoke more openly. There was less looking over shoulders, but it wasn't fixed, not by a long shot. That evening, after the last shipment cleared, Harrison gathered the 15 remaining employees in the break room. He didn't stand at the front. He sat on one of the plastic chairs beside them. I'm not here to give a speech, he said. I'm here to ask for your help. People glanced at one another. This place got away from me. I trusted the wrong people to keep it running the way I built it, and I didn't check in. That's on me. No one interrupted. I want to rebuild this warehouse into the kind of place you don't dread driving to every morning. That means better tools, better scheduling, and better leadership, but I can't do that without your input." He looked around the room. "I want a volunteer from each shift to meet with me every 2 weeks. No managers, no filters, just honest feedback." Caitlin raised her hand, then Malik, then 2 others. "Good," Harrison said. "We'll start Friday. And if anyone here ever feels like they're being ignored or mistreated again, you come straight to me or to HR. No exceptions." He stood. "Go home. Rest. Tomorrow we work on fixing what should have never been broken." As the group dispersed, Harrison stayed seated. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead again, but he barely noticed. He was already thinking about what came next. The following week brought a quiet intensity to Midvale. The warehouse didn't transform overnight, but something fundamental had shifted. Not in pace, every shift still ran tight but in posture. People moved with renewed caution, not from fear but from the weight of being watched by someone who finally seemed to care. Harrison kept his presence low profile, avoiding conference calls, and instead spending his time in the building. He wasn't wearing a disguise anymore, but he also didn't return to suits or corporate airs. Steel-toe boots stayed on his feet. The first priority was staffing. HR pushed through emergency job postings and temp contracts. By Thursday, 3 new hires were on the floor, and 2 more were scheduled for interviews the following Monday. But Harrison didn't allow them to be absorbed into the same system that had failed everyone else. He called Malik into the office that morning, this time with a chair already waiting for him, not an interrogation, but a conversation. "I need someone who understands the floor but isn't looking to protect the old way of doing things," Harrison said, gesturing to the whiteboard behind him. "We've got too many blind spots in how this place was structured." Malik folded his arms. "I've got ideas, I just never thought anyone wanted them. I do now. You're going to help redesign the onboarding process. I want every new hire to know what's expected, what's protected, and how to raise hell if something feels off." Malik raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to use the word hell in a policy? Only if it makes people read it." By lunch, Harrison was back downstairs. The break room had been scrubbed top to bottom after they found a mold issue behind the sink, another problem Rick had ignored. A small bulletin board now displayed open roles, HR contact info, and rotating updates from Harrison himself, handwritten on index cards. Zariah walked in carrying a clipboard and a half-eaten protein bar. Her first day on the morning shift had run long due to a last-minute reroute, but she hadn't complained. "You still planning to roll out those equipment upgrades?" she asked, flipping through her notes. "Half the scanners are still lagging. Parts are in transit, should be here by Friday. After that, we're replacing the full set in sections, no downtime, no bottlenecks." "Good, because I've got 2 guys sharing a scanner. We're losing time and it's messing up the weight logs." Harrison nodded. "We'll fix it. You think you're ready to train one of the new hires?" Zariah hesitated. "I've never trained anyone formally." "You've trained me," he said. She gave a short laugh. "Fair." That afternoon, Caitlin walked off the floor during her 15-minute break and found Harrison standing by the loading dock with a clipboard. "You busy?" she asked, always, but not too busy. She leaned her back against the wall. "I looked through my timesheets. I think I got shorted on 3 shifts last month. I didn't notice at the time, I was just trying to keep up." "File them with Malik. We're cross-referencing all logged hours against the security badge data. If it checks out, you'll get full back pay." She nodded. "I also meant to say thanks. People are talking differently. Not just about Rick, but about you. They're surprised. Because I showed up. Because you stayed." Later that evening, Harrison sat down with Jordan in the makeshift conference area they'd carved out of the unused corner office, newly cleared and organized. Jordan had spent the last few days assembling a shift coverage matrix, identifying the stretch points. He laid it all out on paper. "Even with 5 new hires, we're barely going to hit equilibrium," he said. "And if one person calls in sick, we're back to scrambling." Harrison studied the sheet. What about cross-training? Jordan pointed to a section. That's what this is. I matched people with skills that overlap, but we've got holes in the early AM prep and late-night labeling. We need 2 floaters minimum. I'll approve 2 floater roles, temp to perm. You choose who shadows and when, Jordan nodded. People are going to want to know if this is how it's going to be moving forward, not just for a week. It is. And the survey program you mentioned, is that actually coming back, already in development, biweekly, anonymous, and every location. But I want more than just checkboxes. I want real feedback. We'll pilot it here before rolling it out. Jordan leaned back in his chair. Then you're going to need someone to help sort through the noise. You volunteering, Jordan shrugged. Better me than someone who doesn't know the floor. Friday morning came with its own test. During the first shift, Harrison received word from one of the forklift operators, Annika, that she'd overheard a temp late 20s, wiry, wearing a bandana, making disparaging comments about another worker's accent. She hadn't confronted him directly, but she documented the time and place. Harrison checked the schedule. The temp's name was Dev. He called Malik and Jordan to join him, then pulled Dev into the office. I need to ask you something directly, Harrison said, voice flat. Did you make a comment about Annika's accent yesterday? Dev scoffed. I was just joking around. People are so sensitive these days. Malik didn't even blink. So you said it. I mean, yeah, but you're done here, Harrison said, standing. There's no gray area, pack your things. Dev stood up, face flushed. Seriously, over that? Yes, seriously, we don't tolerate that here. You're not a fit. He didn't argue further, just walked out. Jordan turned to Harrison. You're going to get pushback from the staffing agency. Let them push, Harrison said. I'd rather run short than run toxic. By midday, the floor was running smoother. The new hires had been paired up with mentors. Samira, now officially in training for a floor lead position, had taken over orientation for the incoming shifts. She'd added a new segment to her walk through where to go if you felt unsafe, unheard, or overwhelmed. No one had asked her to do it. She just had, late in the afternoon, Harrison stepped outside for the first time that day. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the lot. The same dock where he'd stood as Hank Rivers now looked different. Not because the building had changed, but because the people inside finally believed someone was paying attention. As he stood there, Malik exited through the side door, holding a clipboard and a half-empty mug of coffee. You heading out? Harrison asked. Not yet. Just needed air. They stood in silence for a moment, watching a truck roll in for the evening pickup. You meant what you said about staying connected? Malik asked. Every word. Then you should know this people are still cautious. They've been burned before. It's going to take time. I'm not looking for instant trust, just honest steps, Malik nodded. Then keep showing up. I will. That night, Harrison sent one final message to the entire Midvale staff through the company system. It was brief, just a few lines, no slogans, no empty promises. He told them what had been corrected, what was still being reviewed, and what would happen next. He gave them names of people they could reach out to if anything felt off. And he told them exactly when he'd be back next Friday, same time, to walk the floor again. No more filters. No more disappearances. The warehouse wouldn't be perfect tomorrow. There would still be missed scans, late trucks, and people showing up tired. But no one would be told to skip water. No one would be denied a voice. And no one would be left behind when the system failed. Midvale was no longer a warning sign for what could go wrong. It was the beginning of what accountability looked like when leadership was willing to walk the floor.